The Hawaii Sports Radio Network on 95.1 FM and AM 760 presents Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ule Agbayani.
Good morning, beautiful people. Let's wake up in the den. I'm Ku'ule Agbayani alongside Paul Brecht, your usual duo. But it is, well, one, it is Manawahine Wednesday, so shout out to all the amazing women out there. And two, we have a special in-studio guest today as we were promoting all week, joining us to recap the season and look ahead to his second season at the helm. University of Hawai'i Athletics Director Craig Angelos joins us this morning. Hello, Craig.
Hello. Thank you for having me. It's great to be back.
Thank you for joining us. All right, so you were named athletics director in May of last year, and now we're in June. So you've made it over the 1 year hump of being the head guy there for Manoa. So just a quick recap before we dive into the details, obviously throughout the whole show, because you're joining us for the entire hour. But yeah, how was your first year, both as an athletics director and maybe both just personally living out here with you and your wife?
It was a great first year, a lot to take in, both professionally and personally. The job's been great, but it's been one of those that's like all of them, you have to look, you have to listen, learn, get a feel of the people and feel of the issues and feel of the community and just try to learn a lot. So I've asked a lot of questions along the way. And I've learned a lot along the way, and we've tried to make some adjustments along the way. I've kind of taken the approach that, the old notion that my father-in-law had on a little plaque he gave me that said, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And so that's kind of been my mantra, but then I've always added that second stance on there that if what you've gotten has been good, it should continue. If it's not been good, then it needs to be revamped and improved. So I've kind of taken that approach like anyone would going into a new organization. There's a lot of good things that are going on, absolutely. A lot of good people, a lot of good things going on. But then also taking a look at things maybe that need to be adjusted or, revamped a little bit or things like that based upon the circumstances, based upon the time of, college athletics where we are today. I mean, there's a lot of factors involved. So I've kind of tried to take that approach and embrace what's really been going on well, and also try to make some adjustments with things that maybe we could improve a little bit. So that's been kind of the approach, and I think it's gone over well, at least from what I can tell, of course. And then personally, we've lived in Manoa now for a year and close to campus, and it's great. I don't have any children on the island here, so my life is my job, and it's been very good to live close by because I'll go down there, for every game and for every event, and just be out in the community and try to meet everybody, whether it be the governor, or the lieutenant governor, the legislators, the board of regents, our donors, our fans, that kind of stuff. So it's been a great opportunity to kind of immerse myself in the community. So it's been great. And probably the best thing about it every day is just getting up and putting on an Aloha shirt. I mean, that is by far probably the greatest benefit of living in Hawaii.
And just the weather, where the Aloha shirt can carry you every single day. And there's really, maybe you'll put on a sweater every now and then. It can get a little cold in the Simplify Arena at Stan Sheriff Center.
Yeah, it can.
But for the most part, yeah, you're right. Every day is kind of the same attire. You just switch the designs.
Fantastic. That has been so incredible. And then the other thing that's really stood out is the senior nights with all the teams. That is unprecedented. I mean, unbelievable. Nothing ever is like that anywhere else on the continent there. So there's been some incredible moments here that I've experienced. Those being two of them, and others. That's
a good one to point out, because I feel like that's something that stands out for a lot of people that's not familiar with how senior night is done here. And it's just like, whoa, look at all the lei that goes everywhere. And especially you got to experience men's and women's volleyball, where volleyball after every game, you have the aunties like giving lei after every game, not necessarily just a senior night game.
Yeah.
So that must have been good for you.
Well, I mean,
experience.
graduations, all the high school graduations that go on over there and whatnot. I mean, just the amount of leis that are being given out and the celebrations that go on here. It's just incredible.
It's different from anywhere else.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because that's something that I also thought. And it's cool to see it in each different sport. And if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, wow, I wish I could see that. You actually can. That's crazy. We have most of the senior nights up on our YouTube Hawaii Sports Radio Network. So if you're curious about what we're talking about, want a visual on that, I do recommend going to see it, just because, kind of like you said, Craig, it's unlike anywhere else. It's unprecedented. It is so big, so special, and the type of celebration that these student athletes deserve a lot of times.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll get to some of your questions that we have that came in right before we jumped on. If you have something for Mr. Craig Angelos, be sure to text us at 808-888-KGU1. That's 808-888-5481. And don't worry, we will get to them. There's quite a few that came in already, but go ahead and text them in so we can line them all up throughout the show. But I did want to ask one of the first questions when you talk about some of the changes that you implemented. And I think one of the noticeable changes that came somewhat quickly was the reconfiguration and the addition of seats courtside for the court sports, starting with men's volleyball last season and then men's and women's basketball. So if you can just share a little bit, because I know we've talked, offline about how much that was revenue that was able to generate, just to kind of explain to a lot of the people who may have had to move seats in that situation. But also there's been a lot of good talk where I know Ben, one of the diehard women's basketball fans, he was
shout out Ben.
Yeah, Ben, and he was really stoked that he could get courtside seats that were not available at one point for men's basketball. So, a little bit of up and down, I know, but to me, I felt like overall it was a good decision and was able to generate a lot of revenue for the university.
Well, notice how I said earlier, I didn't call it a change. I called it adjustments.
There we go. I like that. Okay, adjustments. That is a better word.
Adjustments seem to go over better with all of us rather than change, right? But no, I mean, that's like I said with my mantra in the very beginning. You go in there, and I've been at 8 different universities and been involved, for a number of years. And so, you see industry standards, trends, things that work well, things that don't, et cetera. And so when you come to a new place, whether it be here or any place else, there's different puzzle pieces. And so you take a look to see, where some of these puzzle pieces could go and where should we switch this and that. And so some of the things, that I didn't have to wait a long time to figure out that I thought would be helpful for the program. And again, this is all for the program. It's not about my agenda. It's no crazy things. It's all about aligning ourselves with the best industry standards. And so, you get there and you see that the press have 18 seats at mid-court for all the 4 court sports. And that's been switched over the years for pretty much every place you go, pro or college. You never see that down there anymore, just because everybody's trying to monetize their inventory, and those are great seats that, half-court seats that people will actually buy to sit there, and so you can monetize. And we're all just chasing money and trying to monetize our product, of course, because it's never enough. And so that was one of those where it said, like, hey, we thought about putting them up in the stands, and then we can sell those 18 seats, not just for all the 4 court sports. And that was met with a little bit of resistance, but I think people, even the press, Stephen Tsai and others, understood that was, that's kind of the industry. When they go on the road, they are not sitting courtside. They're sitting, up in the stands, and everybody knows that. And so I think it went over pretty well with them. And when the Clippers came, Rich Sheriff had, under the NBA standards, they don't sit down there. And so he had to reconfigure the court and according, for their game against the Jazz. And it was right there on the railing. It's like, perfect. Let's just do that, what they do to the NBA. Let's just put them right there. We freed up the 18 seats, and we can sell them. And so it worked out really well. And I think, truth be told, the press see those, those are good seats up there where they're at right now.
Yeah, Paul is
elevated. I was going to say, I can speak to that because it is a nice view where it's out of the way of harm's way, unless you're Billy Hall's laptop one time this year where
R.I.P. Billy Hall's laptop.
Shout out Billy, whose laptop took a volleyball to the back. But no, overall, a nice spot to sit because you're elevated enough from the court. You kind of get not a bird's eye view, but a pretty good view of everything going on. It's, and with everything, there are things that you'd wish are better, or things that you're like, oh man, we're really avoiding this. But in general, I thought it was a pretty positive change because I did get to experience the courtside seating pre-adjustment. Sorry, I had to think of the term.
Yeah, adjustment. We'll call all of this adjustments.
Yes, but no, pre-adjustment. And I preferred up there, especially because I felt like we all got our own space to work as well. Like, without question, because even up there are a few, or typically there would be a few extra media spots for people who weren't consistently able to make it to every single game, because believe it or not, people do cover different sports than just one at a time.
Right. Yeah. Well, so that one worked out well, I thought, and then the second one was, and actually brought to me by Charlie, our volleyball coach, who said, Craig, there's different court configurations for volleyball and basketball, and he said it really should just be the same. And he said, and also if it is the same, it'll open up a lot more courtside seating for men's and women's volleyball, because when they're on the other side, they don't have as much courtside seating as the basketball configuration. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, why hasn't that been done? That seems like that would be a normal thing to do, especially with Rich Sheriff, who has to flip the courts every time back and forth. I mean, it seems like he would have stood up and said that we shouldn't be flipping the courts back and forth years ago. And I asked Rich, well, why hasn't that been happening? Why didn't you stop that years ago? And and then others like, why haven't we done that? And I think the feeling has been that it would be met with a little bit of resistance, and some of the people would be unhappy and be like, well, clearly the game is the same. It's not like it's not like baseball, like where if you have a blocked vision of home plate, you're never going to be able to watch very well. This is volleyball going back and forth, so you're never fixed on one position. Because the question was like, well, the up ref is now who was blocking the one side is now going to block the other side, and they're going to be all upset because the up ref is kind of blocking them. And I'm saying, well, but on balance, the ball is going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So it's not like I said, the up ref's not blocking home plate, and for that person sitting there, and it's not going to be able to see it all. But everything's a balancing test. I learned that in law school. It's the benefit versus the burden. Nothing's going to be perfect, but you weigh the benefit versus the burden. So in this particular case, we looked at the numbers, and just for men's volleyball, if you flip the court and then also put the press up there, it was $105,000 of new revenue per season. So when they do it on women's volleyball, it'll be the same. It'll be $210,000 of new revenue per season that's in there now per season. So you start looking at that, and you're like, well, yeah, on balance, I mean, that's a lot of money, and we need to monetize our product, and so that's why we did it. But just on a general note, with today's changes, I know we'll get into that, but today's changes with the House settlement and with all of us paying the $2.3 million settlement case or settlement to settle the case, and with the revenue share that's coming up and all these other elements, everybody has to monetize their inventory the best they can. I mean, that's the name of the game for an athletic director, is to monetize your inventory. And I won't get too much into detail, but just every year, our budget, our expenses go up about $2 to $2.5 million a year. This upcoming year, just to stay status quo, our expenses will increase $2.6 million a year. And that's just to stay status quo. That's not give anyone new money in their budgets and things of that nature. And keep in mind, a lot of these coaches are also raising money on the side out of their foundation accounts to help supplement their university budgets. So, you don't really see that on the outside, but on the inside, that's like the number one thing for an athletic director. And so that's what my job is to do, is to try to monetize everything we can. But certainly do it in proper taste and balance the needs of the fans and things like that. It doesn't mean jacking up ticket prices and things like that are just going to be, just alienate the fans or whatever. But it's kind of we need to raise more money. We need to do our part to try to monetize things. So yeah, that's a longer answer there, but those two things, came up pretty quickly. And then the third piece too is when I got there, it's like, well, who parks like right by the arena? Who's parking here? And they're saying, well, those are just like employees, people like that. So we don't monetize that. We don't charge these spots, because I know there's a lot of people who'd love to park right outside the door of Stan Sheriff and walk right in. I mean, a number of people have told me that. And so it's like, well, why don't we sell these seats for football, for the four-court sports. I mean, or not so the seats, sell the parking spaces. Because that's a huge amount of money too. So we're trying to monetize that. But with any kind of adjustment comes a little bit of pushback. For past practices, I've always parked there. I've been parking there. I hadn't had to pay forever. Well, but see, again, we've got to kind of monetize our inventory. And those are prime parking spots that people will actually pay $1,000 a season for, something like that. So we've got to be aggressive in our pursuit to try to keep this program at the highest level we possibly can, and it all comes down to trying to find new revenue sources. Yeah,
and I think a lot of fans would prefer giving that opportunity to generate more revenue to pitch to those that are fortunately left to be able to afford that, instead of, like you said, jacking up just your regular general admission tickets for regular fans who want to go, and it's already expensive as it is in Hawaii. So you don't want to hurt those people that really just are living paycheck to paycheck and wanting to come to watch University of Hawai'i sports. Or it's probably better to, hey, if these people that can afford it, you might as well put the expenses on them. That way you don't hurt the rest of your fan base for sure.
And I am very sensitive to how expensive it is here. I mean, I've lived in big cities that are expensive. Miami, Philly, New York City, LA, but no place is as expensive to live that I've ever seen in my lifetime than Hawaii. And even try to purchase a house or, housing and all that. So I'm very, very sensitive that how hard it is to make money here and to not have to spend so much money. So yeah, we talk about that a lot. Like we just can't, we can't do that to our fans. We just can't be jacking those up ticket prices and things of that nature. I mean, we do have a business to run, but but we do represent the entire state. Also, we're not like a pro sports organization. We represent the entire state. We work for the state and the people. So I think we have a greater responsibility to make sure we're doing it the right way.
That's well put. All right, we do need to step aside for a break. When we come back, we've got quite a few questions that came in as we are joined by UH Athletics Director Craig Angelos. So when we get back in a minute, we will get to all of your questions that have come in so far, and then also talk about later in the show. You briefly brought it up there with the huge settlement or potential settlement that is to come down for the NCAA, and how that trickles down from a Power 5, discussion that trickles down to the smaller Group of 5 schools, not just the Group of 5, but even all the way down to the FCS level as well.
Because all the way down.
It'll be interesting to get your insight for that. So we'll be right back on Wake Up in the Den.
Back to more Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den. Ku'ulei Agbayani, Paul Brecht, and we are joined in studio for the show by University of Hawai'i Athletics Director Craig Angelos. All right, getting to your text questions. We'll start off with the first one. Mr. Angelos, you tweeted about news coming on Monday a few weeks ago, so June 24th to be exact, an announcement. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that? And this is from Jerry B. from Utah.
Oh, yeah. And I think some people have seen that and thought maybe it's more ominous than it really is. But we try to have fun in our department and try to tease, people a little bit with new announcements. As you know, last year we started auctioning jerseys off. We did special type of specialty jerseys, and then we auctioned them off, and that went over very, very well. But this time, that's really what it is. We've partnered with a group at ESPN that we're going to have the first ever design contest for a jersey, where we'll for a themed game jersey, so fans can design it. There's a cash prize for whoever wins, but fans will be able to design it, and then we will wear it. And apparently that has not ever been done before. So fans will be able to design the jersey that we will wear, and then we will auction them off after the game is over. So again, last year we did it ourselves, but this time we thought, nothing, and this has never been done apparently. And so we thought we're going to let the fans design a jersey, and then we'll wear it, and then we'll auction it off. So that's kind of our news. I'm giving a little
All right, you heard
strike
it.
there.
You heard it here first, people, and you're talking to the right group of hosts here, because we're all about never been done before type of things. That's kind of like our
push
MO
the
as we go
boundaries.
through every time. But I like it.
I have been told that it has never been done before, so it's open to anybody. We'll have more information about it, and we had we won some awards at the recent NACMA awards, which is the big convention every year for all athletic administrators, and we won a couple national awards for our earlier designing of the jerseys and selling them and some things like that. So this is kind of just taking a step further and letting the fans design it, and then having a cash prize for them, and then being able to wear it. So we believe that has never been done before. We have been told, so we're going to be the first.
No, there you go. Next week, Monday, June 24th. Everybody, is it just for? Because the graphic was women's basketball, so it's specifically for women's basketball.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
So look out for it, June 24th, everyone. Especially if you're a designer or one of those fans, that you can look forward to potentially having your design worn by the University of Hawaii players and get some money out of it too. So that's
a little
exciting.
cash prize. But I think we certainly want to stay with our brand. Branding is very important in college athletics. It's just see everybody's brand out there. But we also like the keep close to the throwback vintage stuff a little bit, and also maybe some new designs and things like that. Always staying close to our brand, but being able to deviate for special occasions, but always coming back. So.
All right, so look out for more details to come next week, Monday, when it's the official announcement. All right, next question from the 973 area code. Aloha, Athletic Director. I live in the Bay Area with many UH alums, and we often don't get interactions with athletics. What are you doing to solve that and build the brand here in the mainland, or, as I've taught you, on the continent? On the continent,
yes, not the mainland. Well, good point. We're going to start fundraising in those areas though too. We've got some people who are going to be going out in the triangle, as I'm calling it, between San Francisco, LA area, and Vegas. So we're going to try to have more of a presence out there and try to increase our fundraising efforts out there, because we know we have a lot of great fans and hopefully donors out that way too. So maybe I'll be knocking on this person's door. If they give me their name and address, I probably will be. But yeah, we've talked about trying to some various things, like trying to get our games out there. We've talked with Spectrum to try to. I think they can access it out there through the app, but we're trying to even do a deal in Las Vegas to see if we can help monetize that piece through various organizations out there that are trying to because of the gambling piece and being the chase game for many of our games late at night, the last game out there. So trying to feature that. So we think there's a market out there for that. But yeah, we did change our branding and licensing company to a group called CLC. The other group was great too, but it came up for a bid. And so our goal, and we just met with them yesterday and today, is to try to enhance our brand, not just East, but West, meaning we certainly want to go out to Japan and the international piece out in Asia. We're going to try to monetize it out there, but try to get more on the continent. In fact, we were talking about it yesterday. It's like I was comparing it to like Miami and others that have a great brand awareness, not just more so outside their locale than inside their locale. In Hawaii, we were talking about Hawaii. The name Hawaii has a positive connotations anywhere in the world because of the islands of Hawaii, and everyone is very beautiful. And our university is Hawaii, so we have great brand awareness. And it's like, how can we expand that brand awareness outside of Hawaii? Get it onto the continent and other places. Similar like Miami has done. They mentioned Georgetown during their heyday. Now, two things in those two brands: they were winning ball games at a high level in basketball and football, and that really helped their brand more globally and nationally than it was even in their hometowns. But we were talking about that too with them, and how to enhance that brand. But so I think, long answer is we're going to try to spend more time up there and for fundraising, alumni events, things of that nature in athletics. We're playing at San Jose State this year, I believe.
No, San Diego State.
San Diego State, Fresno State. Yeah, we're not up at quite up the Bay Area, but especially our brand awareness and licensing merchandise, we're going to try to push that way.
Sounds good. All right, we got to step aside for another break because I want to take a break a little early before we get into a few more questions that were texted in. If you guys have any questions for UH Athletics Director Craig Angelos, feel free to text us at 808-888-KGU1. That's 5481. But for now, we're going to step aside for a quick minute and we'll be right back on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Wake up in the den with Kulei Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to all of you, the beautifulest of all the beautiful people. It's Wake Up in the Den. Alongside Paul Brecht, I'm Kulei Agbayani, giving you the University of Hawai'i fight song as we are joined in studio by UH Athletics Director Craig Angelos. And we are getting through a lot of your questions. If you guys have more, text us 808-888-KGU1, 808-888-5481. All right, another question coming out from the 721. Mr. Angelos, I was curious, are the bleachers at Ching Field rented or bought? Also, will you be renewing the apparel contract with Adidas? I'm not sure what the bleacher question meant, but I don't know, maybe you do.
Well, I have discovered that in Hawaii, they've been very fortunate to be able to have chairback seats, at Aloha Stadium, Stan Sheriff. There's no benches around. And so I think with this changeover with the new temporary stadium at TC Ching Field, that went to benches, I think that has not gone over well, which is totally understandable. But if you go to all the other stadiums, like all the stadiums I go to and whatnot, they're all older stadiums. They have premium seating in there with the chairbacks, but the majority of it is benches. Mm-hmm. When I built our stadium at Florida Atlantic University, I didn't put benches, but I put bench backs, where you have benches, but you have backs that you can lean back onto, which I thought is a nice touch. So if you're going to have benches, put bench backs up. But benches is the cheapest way to go. And I think they did that here. So that whole stadium is a temporary stadium. It's designed to be temporary. If it was ever something that we had to stay in for our whole career, we'd probably have to take it down and rebuild it back up because it is temporary. So, but I guess we do own it. I mean, we did have to pay for them to get it there. So it is our property. And I guess when we either dismantle it and go out to the new Aloha Stadium, or we maybe have to build a new one, we would take it back down and probably try to sell them. I guess that's how it works. I don't know what you do once you have all those aluminum stadiums or benches, but I'm sure you could probably resell them somewhere.
Do you have a quick update on your end anyways? I know they're on schedule with the building of the new stadium in Halava, but any insight that you can share with us?
I think it's going fairly well. I know the governor referenced it a couple of days ago and is very positive because we have two pretty legitimate developers that have come to the table with their plans, but it's at a high level. And so now we're the committee. I'm on a subcommittee, so I'm not the one that's actually evaluating the proposals, but they're evaluating them, and then we're going to make a decision and choose one in the next month or so.
Ooh.
Choose one, and then the hard work will begin about negotiating a contract with them over a 9-month period of time. Because right now we're up at a higher level, and so if we choose one, then they're going to have to negotiate all the details, and so hopefully that will work, and hopefully that by the end of the 9-month period of time they'll have an agreement. And if they have an agreement, then they'll start off and be off to the races, and we'll stay on track. And it's possible that it would be done in 2028, and we would open up in Kansas in the fall of 2028. That is the goal, but it still seems to be on track. But the real key is going to be the next 9 months when they choose this person, and the next 9 months whether they can come up with that. And I think the big issue always out there is when are we going to see profits with this whole enterprise, this business and entertainment district out there, that they're going to have to fund a lot of it. The stadium will be primarily funded by the state. If there's additional money that's needed for the stadium, they'll have to put the money forth, and they'll have to put the money forth for the other elements of it too. So it's a huge commitment for a group like that, but someone that has the capacity and has the love for Hawaii and knows that the profits might be delayed a little bit, but in the long run it'll be a great project, then we'll have a real match and we'll be able to go forward. So, I've heard both sides. There's skeptics that say it won't happen. Others that are feeling that it will. I'm hoping that it will. Because that will also free up land on our campus to do a performance center and to have football practice fields and things like that we can use 365 days a year. Because if you've been to our campus, as you know, there's not a lot of space left on that lower campus for anything. In fact, that's where football is going to be just practicing on their game field now, which is shared by their LTC, shared by intramurals, shared by the band, shared by everybody. Including the football team, where they're going to practice and play. And that's really unheard of in the FBS level. So on a temporary basis, hopefully we can make it work. But in the long run, it would be best if we had a nice stadium out in Halava, and then we were able to reconfigure that small patch of land that we have and have practice fields and student athlete performance center and things like that I think would be best for the long-term future of Hawaii athletics.
Yeah,
so,
I love that.
Second question, though, was Adidas contract. So our Adidas contract is due next year. You always have to be a year out ahead of time on those contracts because you have to order your equipment about 9 months before the season. You have to order your uniforms, your practice gear about 9 months before the season. It's not like you can call them a month before and get it there. So it's 9 months before. So even though the contract expires, let's say June of 2025, we have to know whether we're going to re-up with them this summer or go with another vendor this summer. Because by October, November, we're going to have to start the ordering period for next year. So what we're planning on doing, which is pretty common, is to go out to the RFP process. There's not a lot of vendors in that space. There's Adidas, there's Nike. Under Armour was in that space before they dropped us at other schools too. We'll probably see if they want to get back in because I know they've got back in a little bit. The other one is New Balance. I know New Balance out of Boston has done some schools out there, including Boston College. I don't know if they want to expand all here, but I know those four. ASICS is more of a niche area with the volleyballs and things like that. So maybe we go back to the old model of having some sports with one vendor and some sports with another. The deals are not as great as they used to be in the past. So we end up buying the gear at a reduced rate. So I think we just have to go and see where what the best deal is for Hawaii athletics and keep going forward. But the last thing I'll say on those, if you do switch vendors, and I've been with all of those vendors, Under Armour, Adidas, and Nike, and I've been at places where we've switched. The switchover costs are expensive. That's the problem, though. Like if you decide to go from Adidas to Nike, now you got to buy all new Nike uniforms and all those kind of things. Whereas if you're still staying with Adidas, you just you keep your same Adidas uniforms. So that's the transition costs are the only things that scare you if you decide to go to another vendor. So you just got to make sure the financial piece is worth it.
Interesting. That's fascinating to really realize. Obviously, everything costs money here, as we know, and as we talked about earlier in the show. But you mentioned, before we get into our other question, I don't want to forget to ask you about one of the big adjustments that is coming up this season. Because I'm like, going. Yeah, I was like, I know the fans will be excited to hear that this is coming up for one of the most popular team here in Hawaii.
Oh, football. Yeah, I was just telling you earlier that we're going to be able to charter our flights this year. Apparently that hasn't been done since maybe the June Jones era. Asking our people how long it has been since we've been able to do that. And I'm not talking just one flight, I'm talking all of them. We have chartered, I know, to Michigan 2 years ago. We chartered to Vanderbilt last year. But you're taking a 275 person passenger or jet, and it costs a fortune. But the problem that I've noticed this past year is when we don't charter on all the rest of our flights, we leave way earlier in the week, so it totally disrupts your normal workout week, from Sunday to Saturday, so to speak. And then we always had to stay overnight and then come home on Sunday. So like in Wyoming, after the game, you drove down to Denver, stayed overnight, caught a United flight the next day, get home in late afternoon or evening. Any one of those, so you were always staying overnight and then coming back commercially. And I'm just saying, no one in America does that at the FBS level. No one. They all have charters. And even at the FCS level, they'll charter. But when you're on the continent, it's a lot easier to do that because you're just going an hour, 2 hours, even maybe 3 hours. But everybody does it. It's just the way football works because, you're on a strict weekly time schedule and you want to get out of there, wheels up at least 2 hours after the game is over. The idea is to be out of the stadium an hour after the game is over. You're on the buses to the airport an hour after the game is over. It used to be before you had to go to TSA, you could go just walk right up the plane and you were off. Now you have to go through TSA a little bit, but it's usually right there at the tarmac. And no reason you can't be up off the ground in 2 hours after the game time is over. And then you're flying home. And even though we fly 5 hours, then we pick up 3 hours because of the time change, we'll be able to get home by, depending on when these things end, get home by 2 a.m, that kind of stuff. They still have their whole Sunday off, and then they can start a regular Monday work week and practice all throughout Monday. And if it's another away game, then they'll leave like Thursday night, maybe Friday morning, drop right in and drop out because everything's on the East Coast or West Coast this year. The furthest in we go is Utah State, which is another hour in. but it's 5 hours to the mainland, the continent, and another hour to Utah State. But everything else is 5 hours to all the other San Diego, Fresno, even Washington State and Pullman going to Spokane. But it's going to be a great benefit, I think, for our players because they're going to be able to, and our coaches, because they're going to have a regular work week. They're not going to have to leave on a Tuesday or Wednesday like we did most all the other games, away games. And keep in mind, you don't have your whole team. You don't have your practice team, squad, your scout team, any of that stuff. You're just winging it during that earlier of the week because you're out of, you're away from your home. So I think on the front end, it'll create a lot of structure. And on the back end, it will allow them to get home, get that day off Sunday night and start or holiday Sunday and then start up on Monday. Because right now they have no day off the whole season that way. Unless it's a home game, then they'll have Sunday off. But if it's not a home game, then so we have only 5 home games this year and 7 home games, 5 away games. And one last thing I will say, because people say, oh, that's going to cost a lot of money. Hawaiian Airlines gave us a really good deal on these. So we will charter every flight. The only one we won't is, and they were saying it's just easier and better for you guys, is if we just go commercial to San Diego, because we got another plane already going commercial to San Diego. It's going to be about $40,000 there versus a 70 or 80 to charter one way. So just go commercial. We'll put you all on one plane because they'd be going around the same time anyway to San Diego. But then we'll fly out of San Diego after the game. So 9 out of our 10 legs will be chartered. And that should make a big difference, I think, in the preparation and the rest and just everything. And again, it's consistent with all the industry standards. There's not one FBS team of 133 that doesn't charter. I think we're the only ones that do. And I'll put money on that one because I've seen it. And even FCS teams are chartering. So just part of the culture. And the last thing I'll say is the cost is I asked our business person, if we take the money that we've used on the front end and put it on the back end towards a charter, how much more would it cost us? And she went through the numbers and said, actually, for the first 5 games of last year and the first 5 games of this year, we'd actually saved $90,000. It's like, fantastic.
Wait, what?
Done deal then. We're going to actually save money by doing this. And that's not according to me, who might inflate numbers or whatever. This is according to our business person, who is just a stickler with numbers. And I said, really? $90,000? Yeah, it'll save us $90,000. 5 games of last year, 5 games this year.
I mean,
boom.
I know we keep calling them adjustments or whatnot. That sounds like upgrades to me.
That's an upgrade for sure.
It just sounds like a lot of good things on the way, and it's been cool to see how creative UH has been, and I know that you have a hand in it, and I know you have a lot of people on a lot of different teams that put in a bunch of work for fans. So it's cool to see all the different ideas that come out and just how it improves the University of Hawaii experience for both student athletes, for staff, and eventually for fans.
Yeah, and because it'll improve the product, essentially.
That's what I'm hoping too. I mean, I think Timmy's done a nice job bringing in some good players. We got, our quarterback's fantastic, and others, some additional coaches. The schedule's a little lighter this year. We're going to be chartering. We only have 5 away games instead of more than that, 6 or 7. I think hopefully it's stacking up really well now and hopefully we don't have, serious injuries or things that derail our season. But I'm really optimistic. A lot of these adjustments have been made on and off the field. So I'm expecting some good things. I think everybody is.
I love it. And like we've been telling you guys over there, over 4.5. I know Craig can't really say anything, but over 4.5 wins on the football season.
Hammer
the over 4.5 wins for the University of Hawaii football team.
That's what the over and under
for the win total. Yeah, wow. So we're like 4.5. Exactly.
I'm predicting 7 and 5.
Hey, there
7
you
and
go.
5 in a bowl game.
There you go. And a bowl game.
You've heard it here first. 7 and 5 in a bowl game.
Get those tickets for the Hawaii Bowl.
Exactly.
He always fits in so well whenever he comes into the den. I don't know why we don't do this more.
We should do this more. Anywho, we do need to step aside for our last break. Got one more question for now. If you still got a few more minutes to text in if you guys want, but for now we're going to step aside and be right back in about a minute or two on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Wake up in the den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
DJ Pauly D is feeling this music right now.
I don't think I've had this. You might
No, I
have
put a
done
new
it.
one. I put a new one. So
I was gonna say, I'm like, you might have
special
had
show with
Michael,
Craig here.
but this is a new bump music for me. I'm vibing and thriving with this groovy tune.
I love it. All right, we are back. Ku'ulei Agbayani, Paul Brecht, and we are joined in studio by UH Athletics Director Craig Angelos. Going back to our text questions. Right now we have someone texting in 772. Are any of the UH coaches on the warm/hot seat? Which I think is kind of like, that's always going to be a question for fans. So I get it, but it's a question for you. And we say we'll ask all the questions. Well, so far we haven't gotten any crazy absurd questions. So we'll ask the questions that are fair. All right, perfect.
Yeah, because I'm glad fans have an interest in all that. And the answer to that is, I think we all kind of know that it's we're this an objective based business, and they know that they need to win games. I mean, college athletics brings forth a lot of great things with kids being able to go to school and the camaraderie and the lessons that are being taught and all those kind of things too. But it is an athletics contest, and they are paid to win games. And I've thought about being here. So what should be the standard in the Big West or the Mountain West? I think the standard is to win the conference championship and go to the NCAA tournament or go to a bowl game. That should be the standard for everybody. And I think they all know that. And that's their standard there too. When does it get a little dicey? If they're not winning the conference championship or not going to the NCAA tournament for a number of years, or they haven't been close to that. So, I mean, every situation's different. But I think they all feel that is the goal, is to win the conference championship and to go to the NCAA tournament and or to a bowl game in the football sense. So, some of them are right on target. We had 6 conference championships this year, which I think is the most that they've ever had. Some probably would need to do a little bit better, and they know that. So, but we have a good group of people, great people, great coaches. I've been to a lot of coaching staffs, a lot of different schools, and I think top to bottom, they're just great people, and they're doing the right things. But yeah, it is about winning. So I think they understand that. I understand that. And we've had 2 coaching changes this year so far. One is the water polo coach, Mo, who's retiring after being ranked 2nd in the country most of the year and finishing, I think, 3rd in the country. But so she retired, and we promoted her assistant coach from within to keep that continuity going. And then the men's tennis coach, there was a parting of the ways there that kind of came about organically. And so actually after this meeting, I'm going back and we're doing Zoom interviews with potential head coaches candidates. So, but we have a good group, and some are doing very, very well. Some need to probably improve in the win-loss column, but we'll keep working on it.
Yeah, and like you said, they always know the pressure's on regardless. Hopefully all the coaches, I can assume, hold themselves to a standard where they're always on the hot seat. Yeah. You got to win.
We all are. I mean, I am too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the business of college athletics, and it can be difficult but that's what they sign up for. That's what we all sign up for.
What is it that you mentioned you have a Zoom, or you may have Zoom interviews coming up? What is it that you are looking for when it does come to hiring new coaches here at the University of Hawaii? Like, what are characteristics that you or whatever committees may be looking at? What do you need to see from potential future UH coaches to be part of this ohana?
Well, I've always thought the number one thing is someone who can bring in talent. I've never seen a head coach score a goal or score a basket or score a touchdown. I've never seen that before. It's always about players. So you got to be able to bring in great players. And certainly, I think it's always a balancing test between a great player and great character, great talent and character. So I always talk about talent and character, and that's the blue chipper if you can get someone who's really talented and great character. But those don't occur very often. So sometimes you have to give on the character side a little bit or the talent side a little bit. Certainly there's a floor. You just don't bring in the great talented player who's going to get you in trouble and never go to class and do that. So you can't do that. But you have to have talent. Talent to me is number one as far as being able to win ball games. Coaches don't ever score. So there's that balance between talent and character. So I always like the coaches who can bring in really talented players. You know, a lot of people will say, well, bring in a little hard work and blue collar, that kind of thing. And that's great. But it's like a player, you know, if you're a football player and you run a 5.4 40, you can be the greatest coach in the world and you're never going to get him down to a 4.4 40.
Yeah.
But you can bring a kid who's 4.6 and maybe get him to 4.4. Or if you bring a 5.5 40 guy in, you're going to get him down to 5.3. But you're never going to take a 5.5 down to a 4.4 kind of person. So it's the same thing with talent. You got to bring in great talent. It makes you a better coach overnight. But certainly, so objectively, that's the most important thing I look for. So if they're a head coach and they've done this, has a track record, that's even better, because I think the best predictor of future success is past accomplishment. Doesn't mean assistant coaches can't rise up to do that, but they've never done it before. So it's always like, well, can they do it? Can they not? But it's a crapshoot no matter what. But in spite of all that, the overarching thing is you want good, nice people who are going to treat the student athletes very well, who are going to treat other people very well, who have integrity, who are nice people, and are not jerks. And so, you know, you try to wrap all that into the perfect package.
You got to find the perfect balance.
It's not always there, but those are the things you try to look for. I could go on and on, but I know time is short.
Of course.
Yeah. All right. We have about 5 minutes or 4 minutes left. Another question coming in from the 285. We talked a little bit about this, but I just want to ask it because it came in. Is the football team getting new uniforms this season? Would love to see more of the Tapa design.
They are not, but I have talked about that. I've joked with Timmy. I said, we only have black and white uniforms. We don't have green, and green's our color. And when you played here, you played in green uniforms. He says, I know, I like black though, and I like white. But I've talked about how much it costs to get a green uniform. It's a very, very expensive. I don't remember if it's 40 grand or 70 grand or something, but it's very expensive. But I'd like to get a green uniform in there too. So have black, have white, but have a green uniform, then you can do some combinations. But we didn't have the money this year to do that. We put a lot of it into helmets last year and this year because that's probably more important for the safety factor. But I would like to see us come out with a green uniform. I really would. But we just, money is always tight, so you kind of have to pick and choose.
I like that too. Green would be good, but we get it. Again, like you said, money is always tight. All right. I did want to make sure we re-ask a question that we had a conversation about the last time you were on. Did we have any progress with the 2002 NCAA men's volleyball championship situation?
That is still going on. And actually, the president emailed me a couple of weeks ago, and I know a lot of people have been involved. We have our consultant for compliance who kind of oversees our compliance. They're a 25-year veteran by the name of David Reed, and he is trying to talk with the right people. He's narrowing it down. He's not having as much success. At the NACDA last week, he talked to the top people at the NCAA, and the Reggie Bush comparison, as they push back on him, is that was done by the Heisman Trust.
Yeah.
It wasn't who pulled back and decided to give him his Heisman. It wasn't the NCAA deciding that it was time to reinstate that. So he says, this is last week, as recently as last Wednesday. So it's not always a good comparison. Everybody's coming to us, so we should have these things taken off. But he says you should join with the people that have had similar situations and make a push, whether it be legally or otherwise. And so that's where we're at right now. So he is continuing to push that. He's a little surprised we did not, as he told me the other day, that we didn't appeal it, get representation and appeal it at the time. This was back 22 years ago or so, because apparently we did not get a representation and appeal it at the time. He thinks there's holes in it as far as jumping to that conclusion to strip that. So he's optimistic. So it's still being pushed along the way. As recently as last week, speaking with the number 2 person at the NCAA who kind of pushed back on him a little bit on that. So we're still trying to do it.
There you go, men's volleyball fans. It's still in the process. As I told Kostas when he was here chatting with us, I was like, maybe it'll happen perfectly, that it'll be done by the time next men's volleyball season. And, because we didn't win a national championship this year, maybe our banner raising can be getting that banner back up there in the stand. Yeah. So that was kind of the
creativity.
Yeah.
That adjustment.
Hey, the adjustment.
Yeah,
we're all about adjustments here. That's the new word. All right. Last but not least, we have about a little over a minute left, but last question. Will the football team be able to practice in the new soccer/track complex when it's done, and will lights be installed? I believe it'll be next year, huh? It looks like the progress has been.
The stadium's the fields are going to be done, like I think in January or so. The lights and bleachers and all that is phase 2. That's not in phase 1 apparently. But I don't think they will because women's soccer, that would be women's soccer home field. And it's a grass field, apparently. And so I'm sure they could once in a while, but I think they're going to be confined to their own stadium because women's soccer is going to have that, and they'll be ripping that grass up and doing all that kind of stuff. So I doubt they will be able to. Maybe once in a while they'll be able to share, but they're both going concurrently during the same time of the year too. So that's not the plan. The plan is to have them still stay in their stadium. But if something comes up, they're playing on a grass field, they need some grass perhaps. But as you know, that would rip that soccer stadium up.
I know.
Completely.
As a soccer player that had to follow the football team, I know that all too well.
Yeah.
All right, about 20 seconds left, Craig, so I'll give you the final words for the fans out there.
Well, thank you. It's been a great first year. Looking forward to another great year to continue to review, make adjustments, try to improve. But I think this year we really need to talk about how to continue to raise more money, monetize our assets, because this house settlement that we didn't really talk about here and whatnot is coming to an end.
See, we have to have you back because now we're out of time, but we got to go. So for Paul, for Mr. Angelos, I'm Ku'ulei Agbayani. Mahalo for listening. Bye.
Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
All right, guys, we ran out of time in the live show on the radio, but Craig is so generous with his time and is able to hang out with us a little bit more because there is one really important topic we weren't able to get to during the live show. So congratulations. Thank you for tuning in to After Hours in the Den featuring our in-studio guest, University of Hawai'i Athletics Director Craig Angelos. All right. Very important question or topic that we did not get into, but it's coming down the pipe. No, they're working through potentially settling the House versus the NCAA case, which is huge because it'll trickle down and affect all the institutions at all levels, not just the Power Five, where that's where the distaste and the disagreement was between the student athletes at Stanford and other institutions, but it trickles down to Group of Five, which includes us, and then all the way down to the FCS. So for obviously University of Hawai'i fans, how does this affect us?
Well, just give a brief overview that there were three cases, House, Hubbard, and one other, who consolidated into one case. And it was basically a suit against the NCAA and the Power Five for violation of antitrust measures through legislation that had been passed in the past years about not being able to capitalize on their name, image, and likeness. And so they were suing back basically for back pay that they should have received, et cetera, and a number of other issues. And so instead of having it go to trial and then risking the chance of it getting treble damages, which is 3 times, it's amplified 3 times what the damages are, they decided to settle for $2.3 billion. That's $1 billion. The NCAA and the Power Five conferences were named. The other conferences were not named in the suit. So the bottom line is that hasn't been ratified by the judge yet. So it could fall apart, but everyone thinks it's going to go forward, create some stability now for the next 10 years. But the problem is over 10 years, you got to pay these plaintiffs out $2.3 million. So the Power Five will have to pay a lot of money from their money that they receive. The NCAA headquarters will pay a lot of money out there, but then they also spread it around all the other conferences and around the country, which is, I think, another 23 conferences, which include Group of Five, and then the FCS conferences, and then those like the Big West that don't sponsor football at all. And so that has caused a lot of consternation because, like, even in the Big West, we remember the Big West for our other sports, Mountain West for football. Together with both those conferences, our share will probably be, let's say, around $500,000 a year, which will mean that's $500,000 that's not coming to us from our conference distributions. So whether we're paying them back or they're just not getting it, we're losing $500,000 a year for the next 10 years. And so that you got that hit. The other conferences and whatnot, the Power Five will lose a lot more, have to pay a lot more out. But that's just our conference. So we're going to see a reduction of about, anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000, low end 3, high end 5 of money not coming to our budget anymore. And then the second thing that they're going to go to is go away from scholarship limits and go to roster limits. So like every sport has an NCAA mandated scholarship limit. And baseball, for example, is 11.7 full scholarships they can divide up to their whole team. And football is 85, and men's basketball is 13 full scholarships, and women's basketball is 15, et cetera. So they all have their scholarship limits. So they're all going to, part of the settlement is they're going to go away from the scholarship limits and just go to roster size limits, and then you can give a full scholarship to everyone on your roster up to that roster limit. So, for example, in baseball, if they have like 35 people on their roster, prior to that time, they don't have 11.7 scholarships to give out. Now they could give out as many as 35. So some of this stuff is permissive for the group of five, and some of but it's mandatory for the Power Five. And then the last piece is the revenue share. They have to share. We don't have to do it, but we could share 22% of a certain amount of our revenues with the players. And I saw an article yesterday, with a Power Five conference member that was saying that their budget was like, I don't know, let's just say $190,000, $190 million. They netted out $3 million in profit, but their payout next year will have to be another $22 million to their players. So that means they're going to have to cut $19 million out of their budget, and couple that with the $3 million that they had in surplus to give out to the players. So they're looking to cut. So everybody's at that level, and our level, we're all looking, okay, so what's this going to do to our future? What are we going to have to cut? How are we going to balance our budgets? How are we going to go forward? And that's just Hawaii. I mean, the others, we can choose to pay 22% out of our revenues to our players. And we can choose probably to go up and give full scholarships all the way to our full roster limits. We could, but financially, that's going to be very, very difficult for us to do right now when we're, like I said earlier in the show, every year our budget's going up $2.5 million just to stay status quo. So to try to go $2.5 million and then include revenue share and scholarships for roster sizes, you just see where that money, it's just going to be very difficult for everybody. And that's why we're all talking as ADs about how do we got to be able to monetize our every aspect of our program to try to raise money. We can't turn to everybody else to solve our problems. We've got to have to do that ourselves. So what that means for Hawaii, I don't know quite yet. I'm trying to see how we, keep status quo and go 2.5 million more a year in revenue, let alone, increase our cost of attendance, our Alston money, rev share, scholarship or roster size limits, all this additional money that can go into that. So, we're looking at that. We've got a little mantra called "What will it take?" I'm having my little wristband on today, as I wear every day. WWIT. What will it take?
Hey.
So we're always looking to see what it will take, and we'll know what it will, but whether we can actually then pull it off and come up with all these additional revenues to help support that is another story.
Ooh.
It's a new era in college sports, and it's one that, man, does it seem daunting from the outside. I can hardly imagine what it feels like on the inside, because Ku, you're right, that was a lot. And the funny thing is, I have a sneaking suspicion that wasn't even all of it. If we had unlimited time to chat with Craig, I'm sure that
and if we signed NDAs, then we could probably
all this is still new. So there's a lot of questions out there, a lot of answers that still need to come. The judge has to ratify the decision too. So this next little while into the next year will be very interesting to see what is actually mandated, how we're going to do it, the ADs have been brought up. Who's going to enforce it? Who's going to enforce that you're giving 22% of your certain revenues out? I mean, so, and then what are people going to do to accommodate that? And are they going to have to drop this or that or make adjustments here or there? It just all remains to be seen. We're really, as you mentioned, it's really a crossroads in college athletics now.
And I think that's the scariest part is that, yay, it's great. The student athletes are finally not getting taken advantage of, but this is the fault of the NCAA for not getting ahead of it when they should have, and now this is what we're left with. But thinking about, oh man, we could potentially have to drop a bunch of sports, and not we per se at University of Hawaii, but all across the country. We've already seen it.
Very general we.
We've seen it already happen post-COVID with big programs that we would think like a Stanford dropping men's volleyball type of situation, right? So it is daunting to look ahead. I'm hoping we don't
get to that point, but yeah, we'll see a big shift. And I didn't even mention the NIL money going to the collectives, and the NIL piece, it's outside of a department that's training the resources necessary that might go to the institution. They're going to NIL now. So all of that is out there for the taking. But I do always want to come back to one thing, and that is the student athlete experience to actually be on a team and play and compete is still the same. It was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, same as when I played. The difference is that there's a different team every year, and the terms, their money they're receiving and things like that is different. But once the season starts, the whatever team you have is assembled for that particular year, it's the same. You're going to practice, you're working out, you're going to class, you're learning valuable lessons, you're competing for playing time, you're trying to win conference championships, go to play the NCAA tournament, try to play at the next level. So all that does remain the same. That's what I always want to kind of focus on for the players and the fans. That piece doesn't change. It's just all the noise outside of it that shapes things on a day-to-day basis. But once the team is compiled and we go forward, the fans are going to see, great sporting events, players that love what they do, who are graduating, having senior day, going on to play professionally. So that model will still stay the same. It's just, all the noise and things that affect that before the season starts.
Yeah. And all the extracurriculars.
Pretty much. All right. Well, we don't want to keep you too long, so we'll end more on the positive note. Oh, did you want to say something?
Well, I wanted to make sure, and you're going to a positive note, so I just want to make sure that we're getting to where I think.
Well, before we get into that, I wanted that to be the last thing we talk about, but Paul and I were thinking of the same thing. I don't think the last time you were here, we never asked you. You were a former baseball player, but I don't think we asked you who your favorite baseball team is outside of the University of Hawai'i baseball team, of course.
Right. Well, actually, good timing on that, because I grew up as a San Francisco Giants fan.
This is why I was curious, by the way.
And I did go watch Willie Mays, Willie McCovey, Chris Spires, Juan Marichal, all the gang there, Bobby Bonds, all the gang there at Candlestick when I was really young, really, really young. I remember times I would be crying. It was so cold in July. I need to go home, and my parents still remind me of that. But I did grow up as a San Francisco Giants fan from the beginning. And then, of course, I've moved all around the country, but it's always been that San Francisco Giants. I do like the Phillies a lot and Bryce Harper, because I spent like 8 years at the Phillies. I'd watch their games every night. So I'm still a Phillies fan for sure. But I mean, deep down, it was always the San Francisco Giants.
See, that's pretty cool. As we have found out yesterday that Willie Mays did pass away at the nice ripe age of 93, though. They lived a really good life.
Great run there.
But that's pretty cool that you actually did get to see him play.
See him. Yeah. Candlestick. So that's what reminded me. And I was a little melancholy to see him finally pass on. I mean, I know it's just a matter of time. He had a good run. But to see that era come to an end, it was interesting. But yeah, the Giants have always been my go-to team. I
mean, pound for pound, may have been the greatest baseball player to ever live. An incredible loss on what has been a really brutal 3-week run for sports, both basketball and baseball, obviously losing Bill Walton, who was here in November for the Maui Invitational, and then Jerry West, who was also here in Hawaii this past year. And then losing, like I said, perhaps the greatest baseball player to live in Willie Mays. So I was curious about that for a reason, because I couldn't remember if you and I had a conversation where you had brought up the Giants, because I had some gut feeling that had happened, and that's why I had brought it up to you, Ku, this morning on if we had remembered who your favorite baseball team was.
Well, on a much lighter note, though, you did mention the women's basketball WNBA. Let's not leave them out. They're a hot topic now.
Time.
And then the ACL injury.
I know. That's Paul. That's Paul's girl over there.
That's my girl.
Cameron Brink.
It broke my heart, but it's been cool to see the W really get a lot of coverage, even if it's not always chatting about the basketball league itself, which I would prefer.
There's no such thing as bad publicity, right?
Right, and that's kind of where I was going to go to with it.
Everyone's talking about it. I think it's fantastic, but it's sad to see her go down with an ACL. So.
Well, just because they're all super, like they seem like great people. It goes back to the conversation that we had earlier about what you look for in coaches, and it's kind of what you look for in players as well. It makes it easier to root for players, and Cameron Brink, somebody who is obviously very well spoken and just fun to watch on the basketball court, as many of these rookies this season are. It is going into what I feel is a golden age for the WNBA. So I'm glad you bring it up, because we love our ladies who hoop on the hardwood.
Women's basketball, man. That's what we're here for at Hawaii Sports Radio Network. All right. Last but not least, Craig, ending it on the high note, I will show everybody on the YouTube show that I am wearing the specially designed Craig Angelos shirt with his caricature, and it says a very famous quote based on the story that you tell at a lot of the events that we go to. So because the mastermind behind making this shirt is someone that's always there at all your events. So we've heard the story multiple times, and it says the cow does not give milk. But for some people that may see us out and about and seeing this shirt and ask what it is, I want you to share for the audience what the story is, because I can't tell it the same. So it has to come from you, so everyone understands what this shirt is about. I'll
summarize it as quickly as I can. I mean, I do speak at a lot of banquets and a lot of places where it's just a 5-minute kind of speech. I always like to leave with some type of inspirational message that they'll remember, because most of the time we don't remember things 24 hours after we hear it, kind of thing. So I tell the story about the cow that does not give milk, which involves a boy and his father who said, the father says, when you hit the age of 12, I'll tell you the secret of life. And the boy comes at the age of 12 and says, Dad, okay, you said you tell me the secret of life. What is it? And he says, okay, this is the secret of life. The cow does not give milk. And he says, what are you talking about, Dad? That makes no sense. The cow does not give milk. He says, son, let me tell you, this is what it means. The cow does not give milk. You have to do the work. You have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. You have to go out in the field and get the cow. You have to come trudge back through the manure, put it in the stocks, lift up the tail, cobble the legs, put the bucket underneath there, and milk. That's the only way you get milk. It doesn't come to you. You have to work for it. And so that's the lesson of life, is the cow does not give milk. You have to milk it. Basically, you have to put in the work. You have to do it in order to get the end result. You just can't hope that you're going to get milk. You got to put in the work. So that's my message that I leave to all the student athlete banquets and things like that, that, it's not enough just to have the cow. You've got to actually put in the work to get the milk. And that's where that t-shirt comes from, that Mike Calzoe produced for us. That was great. He did it at a show and sprung it on me. So it's great.
We love it. But on that note, and that's how we will end this, I guess, after hours in the Den show. But thank you again, Craig, for joining us. Yes, we will have maybe right when we're gearing up for football season, maybe that week. But you'll be busy. But we'll see. I'll text you. But
okay.
Gotta go, everybody. Thank you.